How's it going, people? Hope you're well. Welcome back to the show. Me and Lee Judges are back on Lee Judges TV, and we thought it would be rude not to do a show today. We're going to do a little bit of a Q&A later on, so if you've got any questions, please make sure you put them in. If you're going to throw in a super chat, of course, that goes straight to the top, so make sure you start to do that. To make it easier for me, because I haven't got Dave in the background today, make sure that you put a Q so that I know it's a question. Just makes it so much easier, people. Lee, welcome. How you doing, mate?
I'm good. Oh, good. I'm getting a little bit nervous now because
Mm.
Saturday is getting closer, and with that comes, the pressure of what we're seeing. Bit of team news, isn't there? Like Haaland looks like he's not going to be playing, nor does Saliba. But yeah, it's we're on the final bend now, the marathon. I look at it now like we're coming into the home straight. Then there's no two ways about it.
Yeah, mate, absolutely. We are, bro. I can't wait for it. I'm nervous at the same time. But we are going to talk a little bit about Arsene Wenger being inducted into the Premier League Hall of
Yeah.
Fame. I'm not going to lie, Lee. I was surprised, and I'm going to tell you why I was surprised. I wasn't surprised by him getting into it, but I was surprised that they were doing managers. I thought it was just players they were doing to start with.
Mm.
So when I saw that managers were in there, I don't think it was a massive shock. So I wanted to ask you, because I asked Tom on my channel last night, like, if you're looking at ranking the Premier League managers, where does he rank for you, Arsene Wenger? Because a lot of people will throw names at you, and I understand why Sir Alex Ferguson gets mentioned. I understand why Arsene Wenger gets mentioned. But if you look at Mourinho, Pep Guardiola, Jurgen Klopp, like, whereabouts is he on a level playing field to those 4 or 5 names I've just mentioned for you, Arsene Wenger?
Arsene Wenger number two for me. Ferguson number one speaks for itself. But we were talking about this earlier on with Arsene Wenger. When you go back to the Ferguson era and everything like that, um, what I'd say is 30 million for Rio Ferdinand. He can go and get the best player at that time. Wenger had to go and make Colo Torre a centre half from a midfield player. He had to go and make like Lauren a right back from a midfield player. Pick out players like Lundberg from nowhere and make him superstars. He couldn't pick from the cherry tree Ferguson, Pep, and also like Mourinho. Klopp a little bit different. That's why I always got a lot of admiration from him. He's had to do it the sort of Arsene Wenger way in the first place. But listen, Patrick Vieira pulled out of nowhere. Henri pulled out of not nowhere, but was not going in the right direction. If you be honest, when he was at Juventus, all of a sudden, world superstar. Anelka, you can go on. He had to do that with a lot of players, and then you have to look at it. And I think what's happened at Spurs over the last week or so has given more credibility, Wenger, because no different to what's going on at Tottenham. He kept that ship steady. Many a time, I bet he could have thrown his toys out the pram, like when he had to sell players all the time. When you look at it, like lost Henri, had to replace Henri with Adebayor successfully. Adebayor had a couple of good seasons, had to sell him. He then transformed Van Persie into a winger into a centre forward. Then has to sell him. You know, when you think about it, it's incredible, like what he done from that point of view. Yeah, he like spoilt his legacy towards the end, but even at the end, he was still winning trophies. Um, there was somebody said in the chat earlier on, which is a fantastic thing. He won 3 Premier Leagues. Could he have won more? Yeah, he could have won more. But don't forget, you had Man United in their pomp at that time. Manchester United and Arsenal. Manchester United, if it weren't for Man United, Arsenal would have won. They would have dominated for 8 to 10 years. Same as Man United, unbelievable resources that they had at that sort of stage. And Arsenal went toe to toe with them then, and not only toe to toe, at some stage took over them. I know that you go on about, everybody goes on about the Invincibles. The 98 side was unbelievable. So was 2002. And obviously in those two times, we won the double. Yeah, I think, Champions League was just a little unfortunate for us as well. But when you look at what he had to do and the resources he was up against and things like that, remarkable. And even towards the end, that I've always said those first few years at the Emirates, I always backed him because I knew that he was up against it really, and to produce top four with some of those teams, and a couple of League Cup finals could have gone our way and whatever. Unbelievable. Also, when you look back at it, that game against Chelsea, he stuck to his principles, played all the young players and everything like that, looking for the future. A tremendous job. When you look at what Conte's doing, throwing his toys out the pram, Wenger could have done that many and many a time. The time that I did lose a little bit for him was when we was paying top money, and he did turn around and in that Leicester winning season and only bought Czech. That was it for me. But up until till then, I think he was doing a tremendous job, and I think perhaps he got a little bit too old. I don't know, Dan. You know what I mean? It's been one thing I've always said has been he's never gone back into management, which was always surprised me, if I'll be honest. But listen, from what he done and all that, like some of the football we played in those times, Dan, and some of the players that we had, was unbelievable. And Wenger was, he got under Alex Ferguson's skin, didn't he? Like, what I mean? And the only person to do it, you go back to that time, Alex Ferguson was having it all his own way, you know what I mean? Like, remember a bit before that was Newcastle, and he sort of spat Kevin Keegan out, didn't he? Like, but along come Arsene Wenger, and for whatever reason, Wenger got under his skin. And listen, great times to follow the Arsenal and watch Arsenal at that time. Unbelievable times.
It was. It really was. And I'm going to slightly disagree in terms of where you rank him Premier League wise, but I can't disagree with everything else you've said. I think he is just a wonderful, wonderful person for what he's done at Arsenal Football Club. And how it ended was actually quite sad, to be fair, because I felt like he deserved to go out on a high, and I wish that he would have. But when you look at what he did, he came in and he changed football. He came in and he competed with Fergie, and what he did was turn the club round to where I thought they were going, which was nowhere. Arsenal were going nowhere under George Graham, in my opinion, Lee. And I thought that when Bruce Rioch took over, it looked like it was going to be a real tough few years. But when Arsene Wenger walked in, a lot of doubts, a lot of people questioned who he was, the old Arsene who, and then he absolutely turned everybody into loving him very quickly as well. Winning the double first year, 2002, you mentioned 2003 Cups, 04 Invincible season, 05 FA Cups, and then the Champions League final. For me, between 96 and 2006, it was just an incredible time to be an Arsenal fan. And I do think that I'm very fortunate, being able to grow up at school, having a very, very nice school life, mate. I can't lie, because everybody absolutely hated Arsenal because we were the best. And, I thank him for that. But I'm going to rank him third, and I'll tell you why. Because I think he's better than Klopp and Mourinho. But I feel like winning 4 league titles in 5 years, Pep's probably just nicked it now from him. And I think both of them have revolutionised football in a different way.
Yeah.
Pep Guardiola has revolutionised football as well. Everybody wants to play like Pep Guardiola now. And that's in the world. I think with Arsene Wenger, he come in and did the same, but it was a little bit different. It was old school back then. The only thing I will throw back at that is that Pep has had it not easy, but he's had it easier because he can go and just buy 4 fullbacks tomorrow if he wants to. That's the only thing that he has got that Arsene Wenger didn't have. But in terms of what he's won, I think I'm just going to put Pep ahead of him, but I'm definitely putting Arsene Wenger on, after that. I wanted to do a couple of things, Lee, where we just reminisce a bit, really, and talk about some of the best moments of Arsene Wenger's time at Arsenal. And it was a little bit tarnished, and I can understand why. So I want to try and keep it positive. Because I know there's a lot of the fan base that got on his back and paraded to get him out and wanted him gone. But I think we need to celebrate the good times, not the bad. I'm going to ask you a few questions, and I'm going to tell you my kind of answers to them, and I'd love to hear people's involvement in the chat. We're going to do top threes, and we're going to start with top 3 Arsene Wenger moments. And it can be anything that reminds you of the great things that he'd done. It can be single moments, interview moments. It can be moments that you've made you laugh, moments that you loved him for, or moments that you think will go down in history. And I've gone for the latter. And I think for me, my top 3, in third place, I've gone for the 2014 FA Cup final against Hull. Because after 9 years of winning it, after 9 years without winning anything, that for me was like relief. Wow, we've finally gone and done it. Now, there's a lot of emotions attached to that, Lee, because for me, I think he should have gone after that moment. I stand by it. I wanted Pep or Klopp because they were both available at that time. But looking at things positively, it was like 9 years. You've finally gone and done it. You've proved you can win something. It's far too much long to wait. And there was so much emotion riding on that result. And when we went 2-0 down, I just thought it was it. I thought we'd thrown it away again. We did it at Birmingham not too long, about 4 years previously. And now we're going to go and do it again. So I went for that as my kind of top three because I felt like it was a lot of emotion involved with it, and you could see how much it meant to him that he could still win a major honour within these kind of this team. So I've gone for that. In second place, it was a tough one, but I've gone for his first year at the club where he did the double, 97-98. Because he came in, he brought in players that I just thought, who the hell are these he's bringing in? And they were unreal. And it was the first time everybody looked at them. And I always remember Gary Neville saying, that's the best Arsenal side I ever played against. Like, better than the Invincibles, better than the 0-2 side. That 98 side was ridiculous with that back line, with Bergkamp, like, absolutely pulling the strings, and Nelka, who was the best 17, 18-year-old I've ever seen at that time. So for me, I've gone with that over Mars. Petit and Vieira were just an absolute menace in the middle. And it was all him. He'd done all that. He'd put all that together and basically added in what I thought was what he knew from France with an already established backline that George Graham had put together. And it just worked. It just absolutely worked. It had a little bit of everything, that team in 98. And I think, people will never look at it as one of the best because we didn't go unbeaten or it didn't only lose one game like 91. But that team was special that did the double. So I've gone for that as his second best moment. Because he kind of arrived on the scene and went, there you go, I'm a serious manager. There's 2 trophies straight away. So I've gone for that. And then the first number one moment has to be when we went unbeaten. The Invincible season, the gold trophy is actually his now because they've given it to him. And he's the reason why, if I'm honest, that team he put together was magnificent, mate. Absolutely phenomenal. And I remember going into every single game, Lee, home at Highbury, thinking, how many are we going to win by today? Is it going to be 2 or 3? And I've not done that for a long time. And I remember there was any chance, it's 0-0. Henry hasn't scored yet. Boom. There it is, 1-0 goal. And I've never gone in with so much arrogance and confidence in my life to every single game, knowing we were going to win, particularly at home. And, that's all him. So for me, they're my top 3 moments. I have to go with them 3. The FA Cup win against Hull because of what it meant. The double winning season, 97-98, and the Invincible season, number 1. What would you go for, mate? Any you think I've missed there at all?
Yeah, no, I went on Pacific games, and there's 3 or 4 games that just spring to mind because we were talking about. I think that exactly what you're saying, like that those seasons were unbelievable. And I've actually gone for the 98 game against Everton, like the final game of the season, because you knew we was going to win the title. Well, possibility of winning the title that day, and we did. It was incredible, really, when you think about it. We wasn't really looking like winning the title from the year before, and a little bit like going back to the old days under George Graham. We never thought that Arsenal would win the Premier League, and it's like it now. So that game was special.
Tony Adams won.
Yeah. There was just something special about that day, special about that game, And then I've gone for let's put the semi-final last. I've gone for Man United away in 2002 when we went up there and won at Old Trafford. I thought that was an unbelievable performance. I do think that team was incredible. The 2001, 2002 team, probably I think just as good, maybe even better than the Red. Unbeaten away from home all that season. Some magnificent games along the way.
Tony Adams, didn't it, as well, innit?
Tony Adams was there.
Seaman as well.
Seaman went to Anfield. And I don't know if you remember, I think it was Van Bronckhorst who got sent off, and we was down to 10 men and still come and won the game. They were great performances. So I've gone for that one there, and I've also gone for one that I just think really meant a lot to me was the Spurs semi-final at Old Trafford as well. Do you remember when we was 1-0 down? Everybody up in Manchester that day, and we actually put on a super show. We should have actually won that. Ran about 6-1. It was, we missed loads of chances, but our football was just so far superior Obviously, that was Sol Campbell's last game
Yeah.
for Spurs. He gave away a foul on Ray Parlour, and Patrick Vieira was awesome that day. And yeah, so you could go on and on about games and
It's
things
tough
like that.
because there's so many.
There's so many games, but you know, there's some incredible games there to think about. You know, and the other one that I thought about, and it is a big game because I was thinking about it today. Liverpool in the Invincible season. Do you remember that when
Henri hat-trick.
we'd lost to Chelsea in the
Chelsea and Man
midweek and Man
United. Yeah, I
United.
remember we got knocked out of everything. I thought, we're
Yeah,
going to throw
yeah,
it away. Like, yeah, I remember.
and even though we won it easy in the end, there is always a defining game, and you know, it's never plain sailing, is it? And that game, Michael,
No.
I half time, I was
My heart.
gone. I had absolutely gone. I was fuming with Arsenal
Yeah,
because
I remember it was awful.
he'd really thrown away the semi-final, and you know, that's when I sort of have the hump with Arsenal a little bit. That I think he could have won a lot more at Arsenal when he gave away a lot. For the life of me, to get to a semi-final and play half a team and then go out against Chelsea was difficult, but magnificent. You know, performance from Henri, and like, you know, you can go back to that last game at Highbury. I actually showed that on TV last night. I actually watched it again, like, you know, like the whole game. You know, unbelievable games, and you know, you are right what you're saying about Arsene Wenger. There was a time when you just thought we weren't going to lose games of football. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, and when we did lose, it was a shock. You know, to go a whole season without losing, you know, basically, Dan, you know, they done it nearly 2 seasons, you know, because he actually said in 2002, didn't he? Once he won the league and we'd gone unbeaten, that was when he come up with this unbeaten thing. Because he said, if you can go away from home all season and not lose, well, it's easier to do it at home as well. Do you know what I mean? Like, and that's where he got the idea from, that we could do it.
Yeah.
Of course, in 2003, we got humbled a little bit, and people ridiculed him for it, like, you know. And then the following season to go and do it, that's unbelievable to say that, you know, this team can possibly go unbeaten in the league and then go and do it. My word, unbelievable, like, you know. So incredible times, you know. And yeah, you know, when you just made a great point there as well, that you know, we was winning trophies every season then, you know. You look back at it, 2002, 2003, 2004, 2005. And I never forget, and it's a story I probably said before, but I remember losing to Leeds in that Saturday, and we was, was it the Sunday? Can't remember now. Lost to them, and we lost.
2003. It was awful, wasn't it? In mourning, mate, I was. In mourning, I was. I couldn't believe it.
I honestly come out of that stadium that day. I was numb, so disappointed. And then the cup final, of course, was against Southampton the following Saturday. And we went with my dad. That was the last cup final I went with my dad. And you know, I come out of it. We won 1-0. It wasn't the greatest cup finals under the
Pires
roof.
scored, didn't he? I remember, yeah.
Scored, like, you know, and I remember getting back on the coach, and I said, you know what I mean, I'm really buzzing for it, like, you know what I mean. And my dad turned around to me and said, Lee, enjoy it, mate, because you never know when the next thing's going to come. Like, do you know what I mean? And
right, though, wasn't he?
He was right. You know what I mean? Like, you know, next season we won the league again with and I always look back on that, like, you know, that you know, when you go back to that one at Hull, you know, I never felt that we was going to win that game at some stage. You know what I mean? Oh, what a game that was, by the way. You know what I mean? Like,
unreal, wasn't
it? You know, like, I thought we was going to be like nailed on to win it, weren't we? But then, like, 2-0 down, typical Arsenal. But yeah, so every cup final now, including the last one against Chelsea, even though Chelsea won it when there were fans, I made sure I enjoyed that, because you never know when the next one's going to be. And of course, the next one, of course, was when there's no fans. But great, you know, like great times, and you know, hopefully they're on the way back then.
Yeah, I really hope so, man. So my games that I enjoyed under Wenger are a little bit different to yours. A couple of them are anyway. Ones that come to my head straight away. You know what I mean? There are some ones that come to your head, isn't there? But I remember when we were going on our unbeaten run and we were 3-1 down to Middlesbrough Ivory, and I thought, oh no,
Oh,
we're going to
yes,
throw it
yes,
away here. That one
yes.
comes
What
to
a
mind,
game.
the 5-3, turning that around. That was unreal. And I remember Reyes, bless him, rest in
Yeah,
peace. He scored to make it 4-3, and then we just comfortably got the fifth. And I remember thinking, this is some team. Like, this is some team.
that was
No
unbelievable. Yeah,
Vieira and Campbell both sitting out on the bench. I remember thinking, oh, we need them. We had Sigan and I think Parler in the middle. And I remember thinking, I know Parler, it must have been Edu. And I remember thinking, wow. Maybe it was even Fabregas, actually, come to think of it. But I remember thinking, we're missing these lads. Oh, my God, we're 3-1 down and unbelievable. But there were some great ones for me. The other ones I think of are the Champions League ones, the San Siro 5-1 Inter Milan. That was absolutely unbelievable. Like, to
yeah.
go there and smash them was superb. Juventus at home on our route to the final, 2-0, Henry and Fabregas, that come to mind. And obviously the Barcelona one as well, beating Pep Guardiola at the Emirates 2-1, the Arshavin one.
Atmosphere that night. Oh,
So I thought that there was some there that I could quite easily pick in third, and I weren't quite sure which ones I'll get. But the first two that come to mind are moments to do with him, and they're both at Old Trafford, mate. One of them in '98 when Overmars scores that
yeah,
goal, which
yeah.
basically wins us the league that year, if I'm honest. You know, with that headers it down and slots it home past Schmeichel. I'm like, yeah, we've won the league now. And then obviously winning the league at Old Trafford, Wiltord, it's got to be that game, you know, for
Yeah.
me as the number one. So they're the ones that I thought of straight away. But it's funny, innit? Because I'll probably come off of here now and I'll probably text you and go, bloody hell, I can't believe we
Yeah,
didn't
like
mention
Madrid
this, that,
away.
or the other.
You know what I mean? Like,
Madrid away, that
you know,
Bernabeu, fantastic, you know, like unbelievable. So it's different for everyone as well, because you all have that memory and that emotion. Some people went to the game, some people didn't, some people watched it with a family relative that are no longer here. It's amazing what football does to you emotionally, even if you're not there, Lee. Do you know what I mean? You don't have to be at the game to see
no,
the emotions
no.
and experience your memories, you know?
Incredible, because I was still playing in that era of '98 to 2000, all those sort of times. I didn't go to as many games as I wanted to. Like, you know, I did when we weren't playing football, but you know, I look back and with my dad, I'd watch him with my dad. You know what I mean, like, and have that experience. And you know, like, obviously when I started going, I didn't have that experience. You know what I mean? So
Mm.
uh, but yeah, and that's the great thing about football. You get different experiences, whether you go to games or you don't go to games. You watch it with your mum or your dad or your brother and your sister or whatever. Like, you know what I mean? That is what makes football so special. You know, and
Mm.
yeah, like great times, and you know, like. I remember, you know, like the games against Spurs, you know, the Henry one when he scored, when he ran from the halfway line and scored 3-0. What a game that, you know, what performance that. The ones, the 5-4 coming to me head now at White Hart Lane, I was
Mm.
bloody annoyed about it because we weren't
Unbelievable.
defending really well, like, do you know what I mean? So you can, there's the list goes on and on and on.
Yeah, it does. It really does. Um, let's move to the top three signings that Arsene Wenger's made. Then, um, I think this was quite easy for me. But we might have some different names, so it'd be good to discuss them. And then we'll talk about some of the ones that perhaps are underrated, that don't think, get talked about, that were great signings for Arsene Wenger. Um, Listen, for me, in third place, I went for Sol Campbell, just because of the way that we got him. Free transfer from Tottenham. I don't think I can't not put him in there. You know, it was unbelievable when it happened. No one could quite believe it, and it's never happened
Unbelievable time.
before, never happened since, and not in the Premier League era anyway. And I look at it and think, wow, like this was huge. And I know there's players that have played for Arsenal and Tottenham over the years, but it weren't quite the same. This one was differently. You know, this weren't a
Mm.
Gallas or an Adebayor or a Pat Jennings or a, you know, the players that have gone and done for both clubs before. This one was serious. You know, he was there. He was their one. You know, and everyone was loving him. And then the minute he went to Arsenal, he was then hated, of course. But I've gone for him because I think you can't just not pick him. And the other two have gone for, in second place, Patrick Vieira, and in first place, Thierry Henry. I think they're three of the biggest signings I look at and think, wow. And also, what a stature, what a spine, what physical presence they had, their leadership qualities, their mentality. They were winners through the spine of that team between the years of 2001 right the way through to around 2005 when they started to break up. So for me, for that period of time, those three were key to what Arsene Wenger was doing, mate. But what do you think about it?
Yeah, I'm like, listen, not going to argue with that. You know what I mean? I like the Sol Campbell one. It was a great signing. I remember I was working with my brother back then because my brother's a Spurs fan, and when it come through, you know, I rang him up and I said, "Yeah, see who Sol Campbell signed for?" And he went, "Man United." I said, "No, no, no, yeah. The Arsenal, mate." He phone went dead. He couldn't believe it, like, you know what I mean. That was a massive kick in the old teeth to Tottenham Hotspur. That was that day, and yeah, we got an unbelievable one there. I've gone for all French guys though. For me, like, a little bit different. Or Robert Perez is what I've gone for. I just think Robert Perez
Good
was a
shout.
coach's dream. Coach's dream. Done everything um, that you want from a coach. Didn't defend that well, I must admit. But other than that, you know what I mean.
Didn't need to though, did he? Because he had
No, he
everything
didn't
else.
need it. If the pass was on, he'd pass. If the shot was on, he'd shoot. He could score goals. And you mean that 2001, 2002 season until he got injured, he was just unbelievable. Some of the goals that he got. I remember that one against Schmeichel, the one against Southampton that set us on the road to the unbeaten run, and just a wonderful, wonderful footballer. Unbelievable. Like I've gone for Thierry Henry in second. Unbelievable. Obviously, like, you can't. When you watched him play, he was just something awesome. But for me, and I think he was a key signing for Arsenal, and that was Vieira. I still say now we wouldn't have won the trophies if he wasn't there. Like all those big games, he was there. That Old Trafford one you're talking about. No Henry, no Bergkamp that day, no Adams that day. He was there, and if he wasn't there, we wouldn't have won that game. And he just put us onto a different level. I think he came. Why I put him first over Henry is because he was there at the beginning. He started at the. Do you remember the game against Sheffield Wednesday when he come on? No one knew who he was.
Yeah.
And you know what? When he come on that day, he was instantly my favourite player. Then from that first time I see him, I thought, wow, what a player! He had that little bit of nastiness. But what I liked about him, Dan, is if you wanted to mix it, he could mix it, and then if you wanted to play football, he could play football. And I just think he was awesome, and that he just took Arsenal to a different level. He was the one that started it all, I think. Like, you know what I mean, and he was there to 2005. It weren't coincidence that when he left, we struggled.
Yeah, big time. And listen, I can't argue with any of those, to be fair. I really can't. And I feel personally like there's so many players that people don't mention that are quite underrated that Arsene Wenger signed that were key and huge moving forward, and like Petit and Overmars, people don't speak about them because Pires and, the others come in. Gilberto was a really underrated player when we signed him. Obviously, players in the Emirates era get a mention, but I do think that when we got Anelka at Highbury days, I just
Oh,
thought,
what a
wow,
player he was!
unreal, like absolutely
Oh,
unreal. So you've got to look at them and think, that's thanks to Arsene Wenger. Some underrated players as well. I've mentioned a couple already, but Olivier Giroud, what an underrated player he was. I
yeah,
don't think people were appreciated what sort of a striker he was when he signed for the club. Arsene Wenger's responsible for Alexis Sanchez and Santi Cazorla. Absolutely superb Emirates era players. So there's a lot there that you could look at and think, wow, how do you put these in? But there are some that I think, particularly in that unbeaten era, that remind me of some of the underrated players now at the Arsenal. Lauren, Jens Lehmann, Colo Torre, Gilberto Silva. They're the sort of players no one will ever go to first at the unbeaten era, but they had unbelievable careers at Arsenal, and that's thanks to Arsene Wenger. So I think sometimes people forget how good some of them were, and because we didn't win stuff in that Emirates era, they won't always be remembered at how
yeah.
good they were. Do you know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of players like that, and Fabregas, he was unbelievable how he poached him from Barcelona. I mean, how he saw that at a 16-year-old, what he was going to come on to be is amazing. Aaron Ramsey as well was a young kid when he brought him through, and he come on to have a good Arsenal career. So listen, he will always be remembered as one of the best, to be fair, and I think it's a manager. He deserves to be in that Hall of Fame, like 100%. He does for me. Guys, make sure you get your questions in. Me and Lee are going to take some from you moving forward. Do you think, Lee, and this is a question I'm going to ask, and it's horrible to ask this with only 10 games to go, but forgetting this season, which is hard to do you think in the next 5 years it's looking quite bright to have some form of replication for some of those glory years we're talking about? Do you think we're in a position now where we could potentially look across the next 4 or 5 years at this club and think we're winning stuff again like we were under Wenger? Do you have that confidence?
Yes, I do. I like what I've seen at the Arsenal at the moment, like young players coming through, hungry. I think this is going to be an exciting era for Arsenal if we can keep them all together, because they're going to. Where I think that like Mikel's got a better opportunity is that I think he'll be able to get these youngsters together and keep them. Where under Wenger he had to lose a few and whatever. But I do think this group of young players and you know the team as a whole can play together for 4, 5, 6 seasons, and I really do think that we can really in the next few years challenge for the title for the next 3 or 4 years. Not saying we're going to win it. Not even going to say that we can win it this season, but challenging for it like we are, and also the Champions League. I think we've got a good chance at that because these players are going to be young. They're improving all the time. You know, when you look at it, Dan, and be really honest, like Ramsdale is not at his peak at this moment in time. Ben White, not quite at his peak yet. The only two that are probably at their peak are Partey and Xhaka, but the rest of them are all got loads and loads of potential. Like, you know, if Saka can get better, Martinelli can get better, Jesus can get better. These are all players that can be about for 4, 5, 6, 7 seasons, and really, you know, push for things. And I think it's going to be hard to keep the focus and keep it going for Arteta, like, you know, at that sort of time, because I think energy levels will go, and you know, it'll be interesting over, you know, looking back in 10 years' time and say what he did and what he didn't do. Does he actually give what I would say? Does he change up the team a little bit, Dan, you know, like freshen it up in a couple of years' time, or does he keep going with the players that he's got? Interesting to see. So I'm a real big believer that this team can go well. I think that it's showing a lots of promise. It's also showing a bit of heart and a bit of desire and a bit of bottle, which it hasn't shown in the past, if I'll be really honest, you know, because when I look at that, there were times that I think teams that in the past would have felt sorry for themselves and lost to Brentford or drawn with Brentford. Somehow we got through that. Somehow we got through Leeds. I go back to that game there. It was a tough game. We get over the line in so many games now, like, you know, and one or two games we've let ourselves down, but, you know, that's going to happen. But for me, you know, it'd be really interesting. Also, you have to have a look at other teams coming through. It depends what happens with Man United. And the buy-in and all that from there. Manchester City are going to come again strong and stronger. I think that they're not. What will I say with Manchester City? I think that they're going to have to change a few players around in the next couple of years, but that have been good for them. So it could be a good time to catch. You know, like we could be at our very, very best. Where, you know, like someone like we could have had this team and everything 2 or 3 years ago, like Liverpool, and they're taking on a prime City. Do you know what I mean? I think City are a very, very good team then, but they're not quite at the level they were a couple of years ago. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, so could be our time just to nick a few trophies along the way, and that'd be lovely, wouldn't it?
It would be lovely, mate. It would be lovely. I'm nervy, but I'm
Yeah,
quietly confident, mate, because this is what we want to be, man. 10 games to go and we're in a title race. This is what we all wanted. So could only have dreamed it'd be this season as well. Before we take your questions, quiz time. I'm only going to give one question. Interested to know if you know this one, Lee. I've just looked as well. In Arsene Wenger's time at Arsenal, can you name the most used player at Arsenal, or the player with the most appearances under Arsene Wenger?
Oh, good question.
Get involved in the chat as well.
So all through those years,
Yeah, so from '96 to when he left Arsenal, Who was the player he used the most in appearances? Some guesses coming in the chat. Vieira, Cesc Fabregas is being mentioned.
Bergkamp must be up there.
Colo Torre, Gilberto Silva, Keown.
It's a bloody good question, that.
It's a really good question.
You use Bergkamp quite a lot for that. I'm going to go Dennis Bergkamp, but I'm not 100% sure if it is.
No one's got it right in the chat.
No one's got it right. Would
including
be
yourself. I'll give you another guess, Lee.
Yeah. Who could that be?
I'll tell you what. I'll give you guys a clue. I'll give you the top.
Vieira? Could it be Vieira?
I'll give you. It's not Vieira.
No.
I'll give you the top 4. I'll give you 4 of the top 5.
Go on.
Without giving the correct answer. So I'll give you second, third. In second, it's Thierry Henry. In third, it's Aaron Ramsey. And in fourth, it's Lauren Koscielny. And in fifth, it's Cesc Fabregas. There's someone that's played more than all of those.
Vieira ain't in the top 5.
Vieira is not in the top 5.
Theo Walcott, maybe. Would it be Theo Walcott? He was there quite a while, wasn't he, Theo? Leaning towards someone like Theo Walcott, but I'm not sure it would be.
Correct. Theo Walcott is the correct answer.
Is it really?
Yeah. By quite some ways. We've got about 25 more appearances than Thierry Henry. So, yeah. If you think about it, Walcott was, 16 when he joined?
Yeah, that's right. Just, you know what I mean? I'm at 16 to all that time, like, you know what I mean? So,
yeah, there we go. Good question, that one. Yeah, a couple of people got it in the chat as well. So, big up.
Well, name them because they've done well.
I will do. Where are they? It's going so quick now. So, well played, Magis. Well played, AJ. And there was someone else. Was there someone else? No, there wasn't. Only these 2. Wow. Well done. Well done. Yeah. Very, very impressed. That's class.
Yeah, that is.
There we go.
Well, I think in the end, I'm surprised Vieira and Bergkamp are not in the top 5.
No. But if you think about it, I suppose we kind of go through, don't we, and think, wow, these players were around forever. But Walcott was around for a lot longer.
Yeah, what gave me Walcott was when you said Ramsey.
There we go.
You know what I mean? I thought, well, like, you know, they were around at the same time, and he missed a couple of years for injury, so that was what gave me the Walcott. I wouldn't have got it other than if you hadn't mentioned Ramsey, I wouldn't have got it.
Oh, fair enough, man. Fair enough. Yeah, I was surprised myself. Let's bring some of your questions in. This one's a good one. From Nikhil. It says, always appreciate the work you 2 put in. Thank you very much, bro.
Thank you.
Question for you guys. If Arsene Wenger would have stayed until now with the same backing, would we still be top of the table, Lee?
Listen, I think if I'll be really honest, I think Arsene Wenger lost the plot a little bit because I think there was money there and he chose not to use it. Like, I think he got into a little bit of obsession that he can do it his way. So I think even if the money was there, I don't know if he would have gone and spent it. Do you know what I mean, Dan? So I don't know if he had the backing. Listen, if he had the backing of what Tottenham have had over the last few years, where I'm saying go to a new stadium and not have to keep all your best players, Arsene Wenger would have been more successful than what he was at the Emirates era. But he had to sell players and all that, like, you know, and it wasn't to be, like, you know. I'll tell you another reason why I don't think it would work. And what was the first thing, whether you like Mikel when he come in or not? First 2 signings, Gabriel and Partey. We've needed Campbell and Vieira for how many years? And Vieira and Wenger was never doing it. He was getting an Ozil. He's getting a Sanchez. Getting a Cazorla. Hang on, we've got all them. Like, don't get me wrong, I love the 3 of them. But we had too many of them.
We needed a Van Dijk and a Kante. You know what I mean? And we didn't go and get them at that time. You know, we let them go to Chelsea.
That's a great point.
To Liverpool. So I don't think it would have worked out because I think he was too stubborn, Lee. I really do.
Yeah, like Don at Arsenal TV just said the same. I agree, Lee. Wenger become
Become too
like
stubborn.
stubborn.
There you go.
Yeah, I think there was a little bit of that in him, like and one thing I've not liked about Arsene Wenger when you hear about it afterwards that he didn't let other people do some coaching and all that. I think that was where he went. Like if you have a look at Ferguson, he let other people do things. I know that Wenger was good at it, but you've got to share responsibilities at time. And I think that's something that you have a look with Arteta. I think that he took lots of things with Wenger on board, but a couple of things that he didn't. You know what I mean? You have a look at him, he lets other people do bits of the defensive coaching, etc., etc. And I think, even Arteta's had a look at that and thought, no, that's the way it should be like, So I think that was a little bit of a downfall with him as well.
Yeah, fair play. This one comes in from Arsenal Forever. Says Alexis Sanchez was the last world-class player that we had. What do you reckon, Lee?
Yep, not going to argue with that. Potentially, we've got world-class players now. I think that Sanchez was an unbelievable player. Like for me, but world-class players. There's not. It's banded around quite easily, but I think we've got potentially a few back in the team. But when you look at that Arsenal side back in the day, Vieira, Henry, Bergkamp, Perez, Sol Campbell, they were all Ashley Cole. They were all world class. So we've probably had one or two, maybe. Cazorla was not. It was class. I don't put Santi in world class, but he was a class player, class act. But probably Sanchez was the last one.
Listen, he's my favourite player of the Emirates era by far. For me, he some people talk about Ozil and Ramsey and Cazorla. Nah, don't even try, mate. This guy literally carried us through games, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Alexis Sanchez, unbelievable. A lot of people say Fabregas, which is a bit of Van Persie, which I would kind of agree with, but I see them.
Yeah,
they were more at Highbury, though. They were more at Highbury, weren't they? Sanchez wasn't. I always pick the Emirates era for someone who's never played at Highbury, and they both did. So for me, it's Alexis Sanchez for me.
Yeah, that's a great point.
No, I mean, he's absolute class. This one's an interesting one. I know we don't want to remember it, but Sakaya says, what was the worst defeat under Wenger? I think we both know this one. I think it's got to be the 8-2, isn't it, Old Trafford? It's got to be that.
8-2, 6-0. Champions League final was a tough one to take.
I suppose Champions League final was the hardest to take, but in terms of the most embarrassing defeat.
8-2, that's on my bloody birthday.
I remember it was on your birthday, wasn't it? Yeah, I'd have to say that.
I absolutely. I was actually in Spain. It was on my birthday when that game was played, and I got on the Aruzo at the end. I could. Oh God, I couldn't take it. Yeah, I had to numb it, and I ain't like that, but I could not. I had to go out that night. We was over with free, and I just I'm gonna have to get hammered, you know what I mean? It was that was a tough one. The 6-0 was a terrible one. Do you remember against Chelsea when in his
1000th game? That was horrible. That.
Yeah, the Bayern Munich games as well.
Bayern Munich games, they were horrible. Yeah. And I tell you the other one, I felt sick after. Well, there's a few, to be fair, that I felt sick after, but I felt sick in a way that, Christ, I really thought we were going to win that. Like the Chelsea, you mentioned it earlier, Chelsea and United going out them cups in the unbeaten season. I hated that Champions League. But the one that I hate, the bloody League Cup final against Birmingham. How the hell?
That was that was the first time I see a lot of fans arguing after the game about Wenger. It was the first time I couldn't believe it really, because I felt that. Do you remember we played Stoke? I think on the midweek, and we lost Fabregas for injury, with a hamstring injury. I think if Fabregas would have played in that game, we won. I thought we was a little bit unlucky to lose that. But yeah, there was a lot of angry people after that game. I'll tell you another game that just comes to mind, which took me a long time to get over, was that semi-final against Man United when Ryan Giggs scored. Do you know what I mean?
That was
a tough game to take. You know what I mean?
I watched that with my cousin who's a United fan, and it was horrible, absolutely horrible.
Bradford lost. Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you
yeah,
remember
Bradford.
penalties?
Forgot about that one. Forgot about
Poor,
that one.
yes.
Oh, do you
That
remember
was
this
a
one as
poor
well? The
one.
6-1 in 1999, was it?
Oh,
That was horrendous as
do you know
well.
what? I look at that one as not a bad one because I know we got stuff there. That was a day that Arsene Wenger said, "Right, I'm going to have to go out and buy some players," and he did.
Right.
And that was,
Fair.
it was in. I think that was March. I bet that was about March, April time. That game. That and obviously the next season we went out and bought Campbell and Francis Jeffers come, but there was a little shift, and I think that was a little kick up the old backside. You know what I mean? Yeah, like the Liverpool ones are being mentioned now.
6-3 at Etihad was a tough one as well. There's been quite a few batterings,
Yeah,
haven't there,
like
over the
bloody
years?
hell over the last few years. Yeah, but that, we had a few over the last few years at Liverpool and all that. But that's I will say under Arsene Wenger. Yeah, we've had some tough times at Liverpool and all that, but had some bloody good times there at all those grounds that you said. We got stuffed at Liverpool. We got stuffed. We've also had good times there. That's what Mikel's got to change now. Like, you know, what I mean, we've
Agreed.
had some tough times at Liverpool. Now go and make some good memories. You know, so we've had bad memories and good memories. Like, you know, even at Chelsea, I remember. You remember that Nigel Winterburn game? We won 3-2 there.
I
Like,
do.
you know. So we've every ground
What
that
a goal
Wenger's
that
been
was, by
to,
the way.
yeah, every we've had some terrible times, as I say, at Old Trafford and all that. But Wenger has had some good times at those places, like, you know. So
Absolutely. He has. Last 3 questions before we wrap up. This is a great one. On Arsenal TV. Lee and Dan, between Diaby, Wilshere, and Eduardo, who would have been a better without injury?
What a great question. Well, all 3 would have been superstars, world class players. Probably Eduardo is slightly behind Wiltshire and
What a finisher he was, though, Eduardo.
yeah, he could finish. My God, he could finish. You know, we would have won the league that year if he hadn't got hurt. That right. I'm
Facts.
convinced of that. Like, I think
Yeah.
we would have won the league that year. You know, he would just come in and score goals. He was class
Was
player.
you at that game, Lee?
No, I was playing
I
that
weren't.
day. I was playing that day, and I heard that it was bad. And when I come off, and then
Worst,
I
wasn't it?
see it. So yeah, that was a bad day. But I think Diaby would probably have been the best
Yeah.
out of all of them.
I think you're right. I'm going Diaby. I remember seeing him thinking, yeah, Vieira 2.0, this kid looks. And
Do you remember that
those
game he played?
injuries.
Was it at Liverpool? I think he
So
just
good,
totally
mate.
dominated the game
It's
from start to
unreal, wasn't
finish.
he? Just
You know what I mean?
brilliant. Absolutely superb he was. And I must say, when Jack Wilshere came on the scene and he played against Barcelona, that's one of the best
Oh,
individual performances I've seen.
yeah.
He was sensational, and I thought we got a special talent here. But, you know, I wonder as well if Jack Wilshere would have, between the ages of around about 19 to 25, if he would have been in La Liga, what would he have been like? Because that would have been a perfect league for him. I think the England guy, the English league for him, the way that he played, he just turned into tackles too much and just got injured too much. You
Yeah,
know, I
I remember that one against. There's nothing you could do about it. Man United, and he'd done his ankle in that day. It's just unfortunate, you know what I mean? But like, yeah, you go back to that Barcelona game. Like at 19, he was something special, wasn't he? Like, but you know, when I always look at Wiltshire, always be with regret because at 19, you're thinking, potential. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, unfortunately, never fulfilled it. You know what I mean? And that was the shame about him. But you know, even when he played for England at times, he was sensational. Like, you know,
yeah,
so
agreed.
yeah, like, you know, I'll tell you another one. I'm going to say this now, Ramsey. I'm telling you this now. If Ramsey had never got that injury, he would have been the best midfield player coming through because he was superb for us, but he lost a yard of pace through that injury. You know, he was quick. He had aggression. I think he would have been sensational. Do you remember when he first burst into the sun? Remember it was, I think he's at Portsmouth. I thought, wow, what a player we got here.
For me, it was Sheffield. I might even remember this. Sheffield United in the League Cup at home. We had Carlos Vela, Jack Wilshere's first goal for Arsenal, Ramsey. These players came through, and I looked at Ramsey and I thought, whoa, this
Yeah.
kid is bloody good. And then I remember because he was ahead of everyone, wasn't he, in the team? And then he got his injury at Stoke. But I'll say this now, Lee. We've just named 4 players there in the same era that all broke their legs, pretty much. I mean, no,
Yeah.
Wilshere didn't. What is going on there? It must have been the way to beat Arsenal was to kick them. It must have
Well,
been.
yeah, there was a blueprint of it, wasn't it? Like, get at them and kick them. I remember that game against Stoke when Aaron Ramsey got that injury. Look, listen, the fella didn't mean to do it, but they were told out there to put it on them. And Ramsey was sensational that day. They couldn't handle him, like, you know what I mean? And but I think there was a thing, Allardyce, Pulis, and all that, like, and Allardyce got the better of Wenger for it on a few occasions. It was like, we can't go toe to toe with this team.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
we're going to have to go down a different route, and that was to kick them, not like to break legs and things like that, but really put it in on them, like, And unfortunately, we like, the Derby one with the ball even gone, it was just so unnecessary. But it was, like to get in your faces and things like that. And I'll still say to this day that if the referees were doing their jobs properly, those players wouldn't have had those injuries.
Yeah, fair play, man. This is a great question from Luke. How good would Ramsey be in Xhaka's position under Arteta? That is the perfect sort of position.
Well, he would have been sensational with that, like, you know what I mean? A 22, 23-year-old Aaron Ramsey now would be unbelievable. Now, imagine that, because he would get you 20 goals from midfield. You know what I mean? Like, me and my dad had a thing with him, like, I used to like I love Ramsey, and he said, "No, I'll never be the same player." And then he had that season when he was
13, 14.
Unbelievable.
Well, I was with your dad. I thought, nah, I never quite got. I loved him, but I never quite got the obsession. I always thought Fabregas was much better, and I actually thought Wilshere was going to go on to be better than him. But I can appreciate how good he was. I prefer Santi Cazorla, Fabregas. There's so many I prefer. Ramsey don't come in my top 5, but he was a top talent. He was, and
I remember injured. You remember the Cardiff game? I remember that game when we played Cardiff 2-0, and he scored 2 sensational goals. And I thought, wow. And he just had that thing about scoring goals, and it's just unfortunate injuries. Rosiski's being mentioned there as well, like, by Dom, which is true. Like,
loved Rosicky. What a player he was. One of my favourites.
Out for so long, wasn't he? Like, you know what I mean?
It's about 18 months out, didn't he?
Yeah,
It's absolutely crazy. But
I'll tell you another one who would have been a great Arsenal central defender. Would have been Vermaelen.
Vermaelen, yeah. Wow, how good was he?
Unreal.
Another one, though,
he's
bloody injured all the time.
Unbelievable. But, like, he had the first season he come there, I thought, my God, what a player he was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, incredible. But
he was
so many of
debut, he scored 2 goals, I think. He was just like, he's an absolute monster, wasn't he? Beast. I loved Vermaelen.
Left foot. You know what I mean? Like, unbelievable player. Unbelievable.
Yeah, he was. Absolutely, he was. These last 2 coming, one from Mo. Do we have any future Bergkamps or Henrys in this squad? Legends who may get statues. I think Saka comes to mind. What's your thoughts?
Oh, Saka, yeah, definitely up there, isn't he? Like, you know what I mean? He's got to stay injury free. If he does, he's definitely up there. Like, Martinelli's going to go on as well. I'm telling you, like, you know what I mean? The ceiling's very, very high on those 2 players. I think in years to come, we're going to be like going on about Arsenal and go, God, they were the 2 wide players. You remember the wide players we had in Martinelli and Saka? They were unreal. I think, and like, I think because you get a little bit older, Dan, and I'm going to enjoy whatever happens. I'm just going to enjoy watching these 2 kids grow and develop, you know what I mean, and have the pleasure of watching them play football, because I do think that they are special. Martin Odegaard, I think, can kick on another level or so, like, you know what I mean, to be talked about as Bergkamp and all that is unbelievable. It'd be really interesting how Bergkamp and Henry would be perceived in this world of social media now, like, do you know what I mean? Because there was times when probably Dennis had quiet games and nothing was ever said because it was that way and a bit. And there were times that Henry was a bit lazy at times, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't think he was, like, people used to say, like, he didn't track doing this and all that, like, but he just tore it up, didn't he? Like, so, but it would be very interesting how people would perceive that. I'd love to come back to that era and see how it was, but Bergkamp might have got away with a few because of that era, like. But for me, unbelievable players, like.
Yeah, fair play, man. Fair play. And this last one, I've left it till last. Comes from Gooner Greg. Lee, would you take Harry Kane on a free transfer next summer?
Yeah, just for the fun of it.
With the next Sol Campbell situation, you know what I mean?
Listen, he's a fantastic footballer, like, and let's be honest, wherever he goes, he's still going to score goals. And but at the end of the day, Arsenal, the only way Arsenal will ever get him is on a free transfer. If I'll be honest, I think Chelsea and Arsenal are no go for him because he would ruin his legacy then at Tottenham. So I think about, but from a shithousery point of view and rubbing the old salt in the old Spurs wounds, that would be unbelievable. Like,
Can you imagine?
I would love it. Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
So would I. Go back to his boyhood club. You know what I mean?
yeah, that would be
That's the way I see it.
lovely. Like, you know what I mean?
It would be absolutely hilarious, wouldn't it? I can't actually think of anything funnier, if I'm honest. Tottenham, oh yeah, he's staying at Tottenham for one more year. Oh, he's gone to Arsenal.
He'll always be in our hearts. I'll always love him. You know what I mean? He can go wherever he wants, and he serves up at Arsenal. Like, you know what I mean?
Can you imagine?
That would be the best thing that could ever happen, Dan. That would be like,
It would be class. Listen, we're going to leave it there, people. Thanks for your questions. Thank you so much for listening and tuning in. Make sure you do us a favour, smash a like on your way out. Subscribe if you're new. We're trying to get up to 40k as quickly as possible, people. We're going to try and do as many of these shows around this time as we can for when me and Lee are free. If you can come and support me as well, that'd be great over at Football's 12th Man podcast. We're over towards 8k at the moment. So if you can come and help us with that journey, that'd be amazing. Until then, we'll see you next time. We'll be back very soon to do something before the weekend, and hopefully we'll be leading towards 3 points. Come on, you Arsenal.
come on, you Gunners.
Take care, people.